everybody, and welcome to Against the Fence. This is the place to be if you're obsessed and passionate about the UFC. And tonight we're going to be recapping the events from this past weekend's UFC 311. Some exciting matchups we just had, man. They were fucking phenomenal. Excuse my language, early doors. How we doing? Welcome on in. Welcome on in. Let's get up today's topics there, and shall we, to review. In this video, we're going to be discussing, are the UFC going to be benching Arman Tsarukyan for Charles Oliveira for the next matchup in the in the lightweight division, the next challenge for Islam Makhachev. We'll be discussing who stops Merab Dvalishvili. Is there anybody in the rankings or on the roster right now who can match that guy, because he's an absolute machine. He's a machine for a reason. That is his nickname. And look, he showed up this weekend when he defeated Umar Nurmagomedov. We'll also talk about some potential huge signings for the UFC. And we'll talk about some other things that came out of Dana White's post-fight press conference. And then we'll also talk about the new Ultimate Fighter coaches, because the Ultimate Fighter 33 will be happening this year, and new coaches got announced, and we know who they are. So we'll get into that a little bit as well as some other things as well. Many other things I've got planned for tonight. Talking about Paddy Pimblett and Renato Moicano. We'll also be talking about the announced matchups for UFC 313 as well. So lots to get through. Welcome on in, Breezy, my good friend. Welcome on in. Get your questions in the house. George Murray's in the house as well, who says, good evening, lads. Good evening, George. Are you on your way home from work at this hour? Usually you are, but it's good that you're here, front end of the stream. Welcome on in. Welcome on in. Prelims. Anyone catch any prelims? The only prelim I caught, I saw Azamat Bekorov defeat Zachary Reese. I got that pick right. And I did see Peyton Talbot get fraud checked against Ronnie Barcelos. That one annoyed me, man. I mean, Ronnie Barcelos put an absolute clinic on Peyton Talbot, and I thought Peyton Talbot was going to be the next big star. I mean, look, he still can be. It's still fairly early days, but 30-27, 30-26 on one of the judges' scorecards. He just had an off night, man. That's what I'm taking it down as. Just had an off night. He wasn't himself in there. Ronnie Barcelos just out-grappled him. Out-grappled him from start to finish. George says, Breezy, did JK show you video I sent him? We did not discuss that, actually. No, I need to send it to him. Yeah. George Murray found your lookalike, actually. I was on the verge of telling you at one point. Yeah, I can't remember when it was. But, yeah, welcome on in. Welcome on in. Great win for Grant Dawson against Carlos Diego Ferreira. I thought that Grant Dawson was going to fight Beneil Dariush when the main event fell through. But tis what it is. Yeah, comfortable win for him. 30-27 across the board. And yeah, didn't really get to see much of the other prelims, but let us know in the comment section or in the chats if you managed to get through any of them, or if you stayed up the whole night, or you just watched the main card. Good to know. George Murray says, if Justin gets through Hooker, he should be next, as he beat Dustin, who then fought for the title. Justin only fought at 300 as a crowd pleaser, so he should have it. Oh, that's a good way of looking at it, George. Good way of looking at it. And yeah, he could very well put himself in the mix because he's not fought Islam Makhachev. However, we'll get into some more matchups on Islam Makhachev later on. That's a good option that I didn't really consider. But yeah, we'll be looking at sort of whether or not Charles Oliveira should be the next one. Breezy says, my lookalike, is it Daniel Radcliffe? No, actually, it wasn't. Close enough, though. Close enough. But I do think, yeah, Daniel Radcliffe is probably your closest. Yeah, just a ginger-bearded Daniel Radcliffe. You are, aren't you? That's right. All right, smash that like button, folks. Let's dive into the... did some lighting go then? Really weird. Let's dive into then our main card, shall we? Let's bring it on up. Bring it on up. And to discuss the first fight that kicked things off, Reinier Derrida, man, put an absolute clinic against Kevin Holland. Questions now surrounding Derrida. He's now moved to 19-2. Are we still live? We are still live. It's like very weird because YouTube likes to play tricks on me sometimes. And it brings up the thumbnail when I'm live. Yeah, that's it. It likes to bring up the thumbnail as if the stream's stopped, and it really bugged me up. That's the second time it's done that now. Not appreciate it. Back on track then. Reinier Derrida, with his impressive win against Kevin Holland. The question surrounding him now that he's 19-2, is should he be tested against a ranked opponent next? And when do you think we'll see him headline a fight night? Because I can very well see that happening this year, perhaps. And I've got some good matchups for him, and I wonder how, where you guys want to go with this. George Merry says Merab versus no one because he's holding that belt for a while. Oh, we'll get into that later. Reckons RDR versus Beardew. Do you know what, George? I actually thought about that. I thought that would be a good fight. Actually, no. I didn't think about that one. I was going to write that one down for Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland versus Paul Craig, I think, is a good fight because both guys, they've had the hardest of times. Their recent run has not been fantastic, so why not pair them up against each other? But I've got a different option for Kevin Holland, actually. That's Eric Anders. Because he's coming off of a 2-fight win streak against Jamie Pickett and Chris Weidman. He's looked pretty good. He's been developing. He's not the best. He's a bit of a journeyman, I must admit. But I think Kevin Holland is a fun fight for him. So that's where I've got two options for Derrida. People want to see him fight Michel Pereira, which I've seen on an X. That could be next. You know, he lost against Anthony Hernandez back in October. So it's somebody who's been in the UFC for quite a little while now, settled in at middleweight, fell short against a rising contender in Anthony Hernandez. Maybe pairing him up against Derrida makes sense. You know, you've got a grappler against a explosive kind of wild striker, and I think that could very well match up very well. However, I do have a bigger option. Wales, salute JK, mate. He says, yes, Wales, good to see you back in. How's your day so far, my man? I believe it's just gone 4 p.m. over there on the East Coast. How you all doing? And you must be a little bit hurting that the Eagles made the next round in the championship round. So, you know, they're looking like they could very well make the Super Bowl, and that's not great for a Giants fan, is it? But welcome on in, brother Wales. Welcome on in. George Murray says, Kevin needs to be a 170. He's far too small. And I agree with you on that. My man. It's, yeah, I just don't think he will do it. That's the problem. I want to see him back at welterweight. I think he had better success there. He has a better chance at defending against grapplers in the welterweight division, in my opinion. And his striking, look, he's finished dudes in that weight class in recent. Why move back up? Paul Craig, yes, he came from light heavyweight. He might be a bit bigger come fight night, but the two, I guess, are similar in frame in a way, right? And Paul Craig is particularly good off of his back. Kevin Holland can be quite good off of his back as well. So that's why I threw that one out there. Welcome on in. Well says, in the middle of taking a radiator apart, man, F the Eagles. Yeah, he's not having funny. Good to see you in chats, bro. Yeah, my big one for Derrida now. This is a wild one. Let's go into the rankings, actually. Let's take a look at some of the movements. No root movements, really, in the middleweight division, but here's my wild one for you guys. Derrida, UFC have been known for their crazy jumps in the last year, right? We've seen a few. When you're like, unranked guys fighting people who are completely in the middle of the rankings, like, what is this? You know, that's usually comes with a lot of hype and people who are finishing opponents. I've got Marvin Vettori in there, in at number 7. And because Vettori has fought nearly everybody in this division already, okay? You've got Kyle Bahalio above him, is somebody he's not fought. But Kyle Bahalio, would you not rather see him fight Robert Whittaker? I think that's a better fight, more exciting. And it gets Kyle Bahalio in the mix, should he beat a Robert Whittaker. Vettori, he's literally fought everyone in and around him. So, otherwise you could be doing rematches. That's why I've got Derrida in there, and I think that's a perfect opponent for him. But look, we're yet to see Marvin Vettori back in there. When was his last fight? He lost against Cannonier decision back in June 2023. Why has Vettori been out for so long? He's gone missing. Amongst some other fighters as well who have gone missing, like Nikita Krylov. I don't know. Fingers crossed. Kevin Holland versus Billy Elkenna. Give the lad a proper training camp and not an orc. Oh, blimey. Jeez. George Murray, nice one. Okay. Top shout there, bro. Top shout there, bro. But yeah, that's all I've got. I've got, for Derrida, either Michel Pereira at 15 or Marvin Vettori at number 7. Kevin Holland, unranked. Eric Anders. Eric's not the best of complete fighters, but he is somebody who keeps developing and he's getting there. I'll give him that. He's a former football player. He's a tonk athlete. Get him in there against Kevin Holland. Holland's got more experience, of course, but with recent runs, I think it makes sense. George Mace's last fight, Brendan Allen at Vegas Casino. Oh, yeah, didn't they have a scrap? Haven't they not fought before, though? No, they haven't. No, they haven't. But Brendan Allen is currently paired up against Anthony Hernandez. So, yeah, timing-wise, not great. So, but yeah, I think that would be a good one for Vettori, though. But maybe Allen just needs to get a win and defend his ranking. All right, cool. Heading on back then to the second fight of the night, which, man, this happens so damn quick. Gelton Almeida picking up his second straight win now, I think, in a row. TKO victory against Survey Spivak. He just does what he does best. He gets into mount position, or he flattens you out on the back, and he either sinks you in a rear naked choke, or he completely dominates and TKOs you, and you can't get out of it. And it's crazy because, you know, he came from light heavyweight originally, and he's been stopping people at heavyweight. He fell short against Curtis Blades. Rushed a takedown against Blades. Blades just kind of dug those elbows into that equilibrium area and put him away, which is sad. As I said at the weekend, if he'd have beaten Blades, he'd be in title contention right now. He'd be fighting Tom Aspinall, or he would have fought Tom Aspinall, perhaps. So I think he's on the rise. He's definitely someone to keep an eye out still. He could shock people in 2025, but it's going to depend on matchups, really, and time frame. He's going to need to stay active, and that's a bit of a problem here. He made, you know, is he ready for a title eliminator now? Is Gelton Almeida ready for a title eliminator? If yes, then you give him Cyril Gane, right? Gane seems to want to only fight once a year now. He's shooting movies or whatever. Gane's got a lot to prove because some felt he lost the Volkov fight. But if you guys don't think that Gelton Almeida is ready for a title eliminator yet, then maybe you would give him Alexander Volkov. And that is a fight that I suggested in the last Aftermath show. So that's where I'm at with that. Tom's got to be fighting for the belt. He's got to be fighting Jones. If not, then we've got to have a number one. We've got to have the vacant belt contested. It'd either be Aspinall versus Gane, or it'd be Aspinall versus Almeida. the UFC might favour the Almeida option. But I want to be confident that the Jones fight is going to happen. I think a lot of fans are at the moment. Dana's been feeling very confident about it, and that those vibes have been rubbing off on the fans. International Fight Week this year is going to be big. That's probably when it will happen. Jailton Almeida's going to need another fight in that time. So, look, Gane. Give him Gane. Give him Gane. George Morris says Spivak versus Parkin, Almeida versus Volkov. So I think we're on the same page, George. I've got that for Spivak as well. Mick Parkin, if he beats Marcin Tybura in March at UFC London, then that is the next option. If we go in on here, we see some the rankings. Then you've got Parkin at 15. Tybura is up there at number 8, just below Spivak. Spivak beat Tybura in his last fight, so yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, because otherwise I can't see there being a lot of fights for Spivak, because he's fought a lot of guys already at heavyweight. Like the instant I said, beat Tybura, fell short against Tsarukyan, beat Derek Lewis, Gusto Sakai. So he's fought a couple of people in the top half of his division, and he looked pretty good in that last fight against Tybura, or the one prior to Almeida. So yeah, guys, he's not fought. Rosenstruck, who's currently paired up against Sergey Pavlovich. So maybe if Pavlovich beats Rosenstruck, you could see Rosenstruck versus Spivak, perhaps. Taito Ivasa's gone missing since the 305 card. There's some people in the bottom half that are on their way up, but they're also fighting people in the bottom half as well. Waldo Cortez Acosta, that's a mouthful, is fighting Ryan Spann, who's not even ranked. Shamil Ghaziev's fighting Thomas Peterson, not even ranked. Marcus Rogério de Lima, coming off a win, but needs an opponent. Has he fought Taito Ivasa? No, he has not. So I think those two get paired up. Tuivasa versus Rogério de Lima. Make that happen. And then, yeah, those are some of the matchups I'll probably make in the heavyweight division. Special like on the video, guys. Reese says 100% Volkov. Yeah. You know, it's like the UFC felt that Volkov beat Gane, and he deserves a good fight after that, right? He's in at 3. Okay, he's going to be defending his ranking against Gelton. But, look, Gelton's been a phenom, and he's finishing people. If you prevent Almeida from taking your ranking, then look, I think you make a good case. You come off a win. Why not? If Gane is not available, you know, for whatever reason, take a spot. I mean, admittedly, I wouldn't mind seeing Gane Volkov run back. I wouldn't. But I don't think the UFC will run that route. George Murray says, or loser of Sergey versus Bigger Boy. Yeah. I see for Spivak. Yeah. 100% on that. Yeah. I mean, because Pavlovich would be... Or Pavlovich would fall some. I wouldn't mind seeing Pavlovich versus Blaze, but for some reason Blaze is fighting Rizvan Koniev. Who the hell is he? I've not seen him fight at all. Was he literally just signed for the UFC? Because he's just like come out of nowhere. And I'm like, all right, props to Curtis Blades for taking that fight, right? Against someone who's not known. If you're Blades, you know, you've fought everybody in the division already, pretty much. You're coming off a loss. Fair play for taking the fight. You look strong. Who did he fight? Has he got some hype? Hugo Cunha. Mate, isn't he getting signed for Chelsea? That was his literal last fight in Contender Series. And now he's fighting Curtis Blades. He had a cancelled bout against Martin Buday. How on earth is that happening? That's mad. Surely that's not right. Unless this guy seriously is the real deal and is coming out of nowhere. Yeah. From Contender Series to top 5. Anyone done that yet? Not even Bo Nickal's done that. Mad. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. All right, cool. Let's wrap that up there then. Jailton Almeida, I'd give him Tsarukyan or Alexander Volkov, depending on situations. For Sverjay Spivak, I'll give him Mick Parkin or, the loser of Pavlovich and Rosenstruck. There we go. Heading on back then to our third fight of the night, which was probably arguably one of the fights that people were most looking forward to. Yuri Prohaska defeating Jamal Hill, TKO, round 3. Man, did Prohaska... Was this his best performance yet? Maybe. Or maybe not. He showed improved head movement against the Southpaw Sniper. That was a good one. Reyes could have been his best performance with the spinning back elbow. That finish was gnarly, and Yuri during that time was coming through the ranks fast. But this one against a more technical counterpuncher in Jamal Hill, I think top guy ranked. I think it was good performance. Jamal Hill looked a bit off with his timing. I was confident Jamal Hill was going to knock Yuri out. But, man, Yuri's defense was just on point. And I didn't really remember Jamal Hill landing anything too massively consistent on him, really. But hey-ho. George says Pena got finished. I know what he's on about there. Probably blame the knee pads. I mean, do you know what? I've not seen Jamal Hill's excuses. I think maybe he's going to give it a few days. And then he'll do a video. But it'll probably be a big one, right? And it's a shame because... Can you see Jamal Hill struggle to get back to his old self now after 2 back-to-back TKO losses? I do. I can almost see like a similar Tony Ferguson route for him. But not as drastic because Tony Ferguson kind of fell off because he had an absolute war with Justin Gaethje and was never the same fighter after that. Jamal Hill's just getting knocked out after knocked out. And I can see him... just now being a bit of a gatekeeper, really. He's got to, I think, dig deep, search within himself, maybe take a bit of time out, and then get back on the saddle. Matchup-wise for Jamal Hill, I've got down Khalil Roundtree Jr. at the moment. This would be an excellent fight to make, I feel. However, I did suggest that I would like to see Rakic versus Roundtree Jr. at one point. So I wouldn't mind seeing either of those fights if I'm honest. I think Roundtree Jr. deserves to fight up after his performance against Alex Pereira because it was a good one. I felt it was a good performance. So, yeah, maybe the Rakic fight makes a bit more sense. Rakic isn't... let's go into the rankings. Rakic is somebody who... doesn't fight that often, but should really get back in there and try and stay as active as possible. I think he's probably dealt with a few injuries. Roundtree Jr., after the beatdown to Pereira, will probably take a bit more of an extended period out. But, hopefully we get to see him back in there soon. But, yeah, either of those fights. Get your fights in the chats, guys. Who do you want to see? George Murray says Yuri versus Jan / Allberg winner, #1 contender fight. George Murray says Hill versus Roundtree as well. He would want to see that fight. Harris is in the house. Yes, brother Harris. Harris, I did send Sai. Well, Sai had lost, I think, your delivery details. Oh, actually, Sai needs to get back to me because I did ask him for his address for you. So when I get that from him, I will send it your way. Harris says, I'd go with Yuri versus winner of Pereira and Ankalaev. Hill versus winner of Blachowicz and Allberg. Oh, okay. A bit of a different route there. Okay, I like that. For Yuri, I actually went with George's suggestion. I went for Jan Blachowicz versus Allberg winner. That fight takes place in March. It's just around the corner. Look, if we look at the rankings now, let me get up on my tab here. Jan Blachowicz has been out for a while. Since UFC 291 when he lost to Alex Pereira. So he's top 4. A win against Allberg holds it down. he deserves to fight somebody up, that would be Yuri. Yuri versus Jan is an exciting fight. So, yeah, I would give Yuri either one of those guys. But, look, if at the same time, flip side, if Alex Pereira goes out there and starches Magomed Ankalaev, who's the next man? Carlos Ulberg gets the win against Jan. He's the next man. He's the shiny new toy of the division. So I wouldn't be surprised if that fight gets made. Jan Blachowicz wins. Do the UFC run it back with Blachowicz? Maybe. It was a very close fight. Listening to the podcast this past week with Breezy and Red Wolf, they were saying that, look, Jan Blachowicz is quite underrated and probably does deserve another crack at Alex Pereira. So it all depends on the outcomes. But look, I'm not mad at either. You know, I think on paper, stylistically, Ankalaev is Pereira's toughest test. I really hope that Pereira knocks him out and sails off into the sunset or goes on to bigger things. Challenge for the heavyweight belt, because who else is there realistically? Yes, okay, Blachowicz could very well go in there, execute a perfect game plan, and beat Pereira across 5 rounds. I could see that. But if you're Pereira, you've fought Prohaska twice already, defending your belt. You've defended your belt against Khalil Roundtree, who came out of nowhere. Jamal Hill, like you've racked up some good title defenses. You're one of the best to ever do it. Go to heavyweight, get a big fight, sail off in sunset. That's what I would say. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with that. Harris says, actually, I think Yuri fighting for title again would make sense if Ankalaev wins the title. Aha, there you go. Yuri fighting Pereira again for the title would be 2, maybe. Yeah, I can't see Yuri fighting Pereira again. I just think those two. Look, the third time round, yes, don't get me wrong, it could be very well competitive, but it's a hard sell for the UFC when Pereira finished him twice already. But yeah, Yuri getting the shot against Magomed Ankalaev. It depends what the UFC. It depends how close it is. Ankalaev would literally have to finish Pereira for that to happen. And if you're Yuri, man, you are sitting on the edge of your seat waiting to find out what happens. Because, yeah, Yuri versus Ankalaev is a fun one, you know? Ankalaev isn't known as much of a finisher. He's got some solid wrestling and grappling skills, but we've not seen him as of late. He's been preferring to striking. And look, he outstruck Rakic, which surprised many of us. Stylistically, it surprised us. On paper, when you look at it, it doesn't. So, yeah. Yes, don't worry, brother. Yes, don't worry. So, yeah, that's just where my head's at with that at the moment. Yuri, I'd give Blachowicz versus Ulberg winner for now. With Jamal Hill. Khalil Roundtree Jr., unless, unless we get Nikita Krylov back. Can't see him wanting to fight Krylov, though. Someone like that. George says, if Alex Yuri was like Volk and Max being close decision, I'd understand making a third. But 2 finishes, it's a hard to sell. Jan/Carlos is next best option. Yeah. Title eliminated, potentially. Really. I can see him going down that route. All right. Awesome stuff, guys. Super chats at the moment. Not super chats, but I mean, if you want to get a super chat in, by all means, feel free. But your chats at the moment have been phenomenal, guys. Smash a like on the video. We've got a lot more topics coming your way. We're going to be talking about the co-main event next. Who can stop Merab Dvalishvili? What's next for Umar Nurmagomedov? We'll get into some news bits as well. We'll talk about 2 potential new signings for the UFC. And some of the things that Dana White said in his post-fight press conference. We'll talk about the new TUF Coaches for season 33. We'll talk about the rekindling of the feud between Paddy Pimblett and Renato Moicano, and then we'll talk about more of those matchups between Pereira and Ankalaev and Gaethje versus Hooker as well. So stay tuned, lots more to come. Head on back then, let's talk about the co-main event. Who was surprised about the outcome about this? Because I was completely, I had Umar down in my predictions for the end of the year. Look, it could still very well happen, I'll ride on it, but it's looking a little bit slimmer from Merab's display. It wasn't exactly like the closest of fights, in my opinion. Merab's cardio prevailed at the end of the day. You know, I thought he won rounds 3, 4, and 5. And it's just, with the gas tank, it's hard to see who stops him, really. You've literally got to knock him dead in order to stop that man. And it's going to take a very precision striker in order to do that. Got to give Merab some round of applause and a pat on the back because he did break GSP's takedown record in the UFC. That stung a little bit, but hey, look, it's going to get broken eventually, isn't it? But props to him for that. Oh, what is this? Oh, hello, George. Thanks for the super chat, George. I'm coming down to 135 to take on Merab. Wow. Good use of the super chat. And do you know what? Why does it say 3 next to it? It's actually our 4th birthday on the channel. Oh, let's celebrate their 3rd super chat on live stream. Oh, that's what it says. Okay. Nice one, George. Thanks for the super chat, George. Love that. Keep that up there. Showcase. Beautiful stuff. Yeah, where was I at? Yeah, who can stop Merab Dvalishvili, guys? Who can stop him is the question. I honestly don't know. Umar Nurmagomedov was the hardest fight for him in the division. Clearly. But will Umar get another crack at the belt? He did break his hand in the first round. So, and it did hinder his performance a bit. And I was expecting Umar to kind of control the range a lot better and not allow Merab to get on the inside. Unfortunately, he did, and he fended off some of the takedowns, but Merab was controlling the whole fight, or not the whole, well, for 3, 4, and 5, I felt anyway. And his striking looked really good as well. If we look at the rankings, then can you guys pick out a name who's going to challenge Merab best? Because look, the way I see things going now for Merab is they'll probably want to run back the Sean O'Malley fight because Sean is the star of the division, right? He's got the biggest following. He's a precision striker, right? And I said it's going to need to take a precision striker to stop someone like Merab Dvalishvili. Sean O'Malley could be that person, but he needs to find the killer shot. And really, because that performance in his title defense against Merab was just, it wasn't good at all. He was very shy in there. He's very tentative. Merab had his way the whole time. Backed him up towards the cage. Shot him for takedowns. And it's just, you know, could Davison Figueiredo be the guy? I was kind of hoping for it a little bit. Felt that maybe perhaps he was going to beat Peter Yan and then go on to be the next challenger. Fortunately, he fell short, so he's going to need a win now. Peter Yan's in there, could be an option for him to fight for the belt. But he got dominated against Merab for 5 rounds, you know? So do we really want to see that fight again? No. So my matchup-wise for Umar Nurmagomedov, I want to see him fight Peter Yan. Because that'll be Peter Yan's true test. Right? If you want to rematch Merab Dvalishvili and prove that you are not going to put on the same display as you did in the main event prior, then beat someone like Umar, who has a similar style to Merab. That's what I would do. But that's only if the UFC decide to match up Merab and O'Malley again. If not, Umar could very well fight Davison Figueiredo. Same thing again. Gives Figgy a chance to redeem himself in fight Umar, strong wrestler, excellent striking as well. Because other than Umar, I can't see anyone in this division at the moment, stylistically, who can stop Merab. Jose Aldo fought Merab the best way so far, in other than the losses that Merab had earlier on in his career against Ricky Simone, etc. Past that, Jose Aldo was the best fight for him. Merab hugged Aldo for the third round, and Aldo didn't get out of the position, but it was 1-1 heading into the third. But we're not going to see Jose Aldo back up there. Unfortunately, it's going to take a lot more time. So I don't know where you guys think. Is there anyone in this division who could give Merab toughest test? Because if not, Merab's going to hold that belt for a very long time. I can see it. And we're going to get a constant pattern now of champions wanting to fight in the weight class above. You're going to have Makhachev's going to move up to want to move up to welterweight. You're going to have Topuria who's going to want to move up to lightweight, challenge for that belt. You're going to have Merab who's going to want to move up to featherweight and challenge for that belt. There's going to be a constant pattern, I feel, because a lot of those guys at the moment, the way I see it, compared to the rest of the division, it's not really much close. Harris says, I had Umar down to win too, but I did think the line was way too wide. It should have been a pick'em. It's going to be tough to beat Merab. Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Yeah, that's crazy, that, to be honest. I thought it was a really close fight. Close one to call as well. George says he's cleared the top 5 with dominance. Next best option, 145. Look, yeah. He says, run it back after Ramadan. It was close, and he's clearly outpointed everyone else. Yeah, there's no one else. Then, yeah, like I said, I can see Umar. I put Umar to be champ at the end of the year. I'm in favour of running it back. I really am. I really am. Smash a like on the video, guys. Smash a like if you feel like it should be run back as well, because that's where my feelings at the moment. Alrighty then. Yeah, one movement. PDR moving up in the rankings to number 2. That's where I'm like, interesting. Is that because they want Umar to be the next challenger? The UFC. I just look. I like Peter Yan. I do. He's got phenomenal skills, but against Merab with that cardio, he's going to need every supplement he can get if he wants to beat Merab. Moving on, then let's move back to now talk about the main event. Islam Makhachev taking on Renato Moicano. Submitted him. A Bravo choke again in round 1. Moicano, I felt sorry for Moicano, man. There was a moment in the fight where it looked like he knocked Makhachev down. It was a slip. I've seen the clips on social media. I think it was a slip. He didn't really look too phased from it either, to be honest. For Renato next, to see him lose like that, it kind of hurt. I'd like to see him with better preparation for someone like Islam, but I think the UFC need to rebook that match with Beneil Dariush personally, unless they decide to go down the Paddy Pimblett route, which we'll get to in a sec. But for Islam Makhachev, then, what's next for him? Dana denied Arman Tsarukyan for the next title shot against Islam. He wants Tsarukyan to take some time up to heal. Islam probably won't return now until October. That seems to be a bit of a constant pattern with the way that he performs or the way that he gets in there. It's either January, February time or October when the UFC decides to go to Abu Dhabi. So surely the time frame adds up for a Tsarukyan fight, right? But apparently, according to Dana, Tsarukyan has kind of missed his shot against Islam, and he will have to earn it back. So if Tsarukyan has missed his shot and isn't Makhachev's next opponent, then who is? Would the UFC prefer to give Charles Oliveira the shot? Yes, I think so. Oliveira sells more pay-per-views than Tsarukyan, right? Now, I did see that apparently he spoke to UFC Brazil and said that he wouldn't mind the shot against Islam again, but feels like maybe a fight with Max Holloway for the BMF belt makes sense first. And he's aware that Islam won't return until October. So maybe we're going to get that fight sooner than we think, right? If you want to get Oliveira ready in time for October. Something to think about, guys. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section. Let me know in the chats as well. Is it going to be Oliveira next for Islam Makhachev? Will Oliveira fight Max Holloway very soon? What do you reckon, guys? George says Islam versus Paddy after he choked out Frimpong with ease. Send the lad in. Do you know what? I think that's another topic for another day, to be honest, man. I can see the UFC trying to fast track Paddy Pimblett. Why Paddy's next fight hasn't been announced, I don't know. Red Wolf seems to know what that option was. Everyone seems to think that Paddy's next fight is Michael Chandler. I think Michael Chandler's a solid option for the UFC to put Paddy up against. It's a good fight that Paddy could very well win, and then put himself into the top echelon of the division. We go to division now. But why has that fight not been made, and why has it not been announced? Or were the UFC trying to pair up Paddy Pimblett and Conor McGregor? Perhaps. I don't know. Something to think about. Harris says, I think Islam has 2 more fights at lightweight. Islam versus Charles or Gaethje next, I think. And then Tsarukyan if he wins his challenger fight. Agreed. Harris also says, Islam was saying on DJ's podcast. Oh, he's deleted it. Damn. Okay, maybe he's going to retype it. We'll go again in a bit. George says, Justin/Hooker winner, make it a completely new challenger, even though he fought Hooker. Maybe. He also says Paddy versus Chandler Apex main event or pay-per-view co-main. Yeah, I like that option. Could very well happen. Yeah, a lot to think. I mean, the Gaethje fight could happen. Personally, I wanted to see Poirier. I wanted to see Poirier versus Gaethje 3 for Poirier's last fight, but it looks like the UFC are probably trying to get somebody else in for Poirier. Yeah, but then with that fight, it would give me the same feeling as matching Dustin Poirier up against Islam. You know, it's like, well, we saw him fail against Khabib. We're gonna see him fail against Islam, right? Which kind of leads me on to another thing that I want to talk to you guys about. Has Islam Makhachev surpassed Khabib in terms of legacy? Because that's another thing to think about, right? He broke the record at the weekend for title defenses, title fights, whatever it is. Has he surpassed the great Khabib? I think yes and no. Yes, in terms of records and just body of work, should we say. Maybe Islam's fought better opposition than Khabib did during his time in the UFC. But at the same time, I think no, in terms of impact. Khabib helped pave the way for many Russian Sambo fighters and barely showed signs of weakness during his undefeated reign. He did a lot for those Dagestani guys, you know? So because of that, people would probably rather put him in their Mount Rushmore, right? With Makhachev, he was always meant to be Khabib 2.0. A better version, right? And it's almost like a season, right? It's like, oh, you know, season 2's great, but season 1 has always got a place in my heart, you know, because it was the first one. You know what I mean? That's where I feel about it at the moment. What do you guys reckon? Let me know in the chats. Let me know in the comments section as well. Let's see. Harris says, Islam was saying on DJ's podcast, he wants to retire in 2 years' time. 2 more fights at lightweight, a final fight at welterweight, and then he retired. So yeah, I mean, I guess this is almost a similar pathway to what we want to see for Alex Pereira, really, isn't it? Yeah, who those two fights would be? 2 years is it's not 2 years isn't a long time in the MMA world. Normally, you get what, 2 fights a year if you stay healthy, or if you're a champion, you stay healthy. So yeah, I could one against Charles, winner against Tsarukyan at least. I think. George Murray says can argue it. The Khabib all defensive were against an actual lightweight. That is true. That is another thing to go against Islam for. However, you could argue that the first fight between them was close, and therefore that is another caveat for why you'd say that he doesn't surpass Khabib's legacy. But at the same time, Volk was the pound for pound number one fighter. Did Khabib fight the number one pound for pound fighter? He didn't. You know, take it as if you want, right? Take it however you want. Islam beat the number one pound for pound fighter, regardless of weight. Harris says, I think he'll go down as a greater fighter at lightweight than Khabib when he retires, but Khabib will be a bigger name because of his rivalry with Conor. And do you know what? That's a very good point, Harris. Smash a like on the video for Harris. I mean, yeah, the Conor fans will always have that argument over Khabib made you who you are, who you were, you know, or who you are, because of their rivalry and the whole jumping out of the cage after the fight and all that drama that surrounded that fight. It was such a build-up, and it's gonna be hard to get anywhere closer to that again, really. So yeah, it's a good point, Harris. I like that. I like your thinking. Yeah, that's my thought on it. All right, cool. Get some more chats in regards to this topic. We'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Well, let's move on to some more things. Let's talk about some headlines, shall we? We'll go on to here. Our first headline of this evening is going to be this one here. During Dana White's post-fight press conference, he shed some light on the UFC potentially signing Patricio Pitbull and Aaron Pico, two former Bellator fighters. Now, when asked about Pitbull, Dana said, I don't know, I'll talk to the boys and we'll see where we're at. Pitbull is 37 years old and former two-weight Bellator champion. It's a short-term signing, but it's a refreshing one, right? Don't you think? Would you like to see Patricio Pitbull in the UFC? Question is, which division would he fight in? I personally think that he'd be better suited at lightweight at his point in his career. And there are people at the top of that division who need fresh opponents. Your Dustin Poiriers, your Justin Gaethjes, your Charles Oliveira's, even Max Holloway, etc. They all need fresh guys. Okay, Gaethje versus Hooker is a fresh fight. I'll give you that. But still, let's add someone else into the mix, right? That's where I think about it. Now, when asked about Aaron Pico, this is a different answer. Dana White said, I definitely know the boys are interested in him. And the journalist who asked the question said something about exclusivity with the UFC in terms of negotiations. So I'm fairly confident the UFC can get this deal over the line. Now, Aaron Pico is 28 years old. Sorry. Pico is 28 years old. 9 of his 13 wins are by knockout. And his style is very similar to Ilia Topuria. I think, anyway. Pico was Ilia Topuria before Ilia Topuria came onto the scene. He was the American Ilia Topuria. It's just he was dealt with some bad matchups at Bellator at such a young age, and it kind of hindered his development a bit. He was training with Freddie Roach on his boxing, and he was helping TJ Dillashaw prepare for his fights. when he was like in his early 20s. And he had a lot of hype behind him. And I think that hype can come back again if he decides to sign with the UFC. And this makes me think the UFC will want him to enter the featherweight division in hopes of creating a rivalry with the champ, Ilia Topuria. You got two fighters that are very similar in style. He's so exciting. Powerful punches with slick boxing, but also got phenomenal wrestling in their locker as well. But you need to build him up, I think, if you're going to sign Aaron Pico. He's not fought in a little while. He's not been as active, I think, in recent years. I'd give him Dan Ige to start with. Someone towards the bottom of the rankings. Ige's probably got a similar style to him as well. Okay, Pico's been knocked out before. Dan Ige can crack, and he's capable of knocking anybody out in the division. But if you're Pico, you get past Dan Ige, bit of a gatekeeper for the rankings. You get yourself into the rankings, and then the UFC will give you a top opponent because it's going to happen. That's how it's going to happen. That's my prediction. What do you guys think? Do you think the UFC should sign Patricio Pitbull and Aaron Pico? Get in the comments section. Get in the chats as well. Smash a like on the video. Because, man, I am excited about the prospect of Aaron Pico coming into the UFC. I'm excited about Pitbull as well. But as we know, we've seen Pitbull's at his best in the Bellator days, right? He's on the back end of his career. Pico, however, he's only 28. Ilia Topuria turned 28 today. There you go. That's the fight. Harris says, yep, I agree. Pitbull at lightweight, similar to Chandler. Match him up for those entertaining bouts. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'd like to see him run it back with Chandler. That's another shout. Patchy Mix also looking to leave. UFC should definitely be snapping him up as well. Oh, that's a good shout. Yeah, PFL could very well lose some really good guys here, right? Man, you lose potential signings in Pitbull, Aaron Pico, and Patchy Mix. You got to start looking at your model here, because these guys who have been around the game for quite a while, you're going to need them in your roster to bring eyeballs into your product. And when Scott Coker took over at Bellator, what did he do originally? He had to bring in people who have got name value. And those people, sadly, were a lot older, but they brought eyes to the product, which helped the fans see some of their much younger talent coming through. So, yeah, man, that would be a huge loss for PFL. But yeah, UFC, come on, snap them up. Let's get a deal done. I want to see Aaron Pico in the UFC this year. I want to see a fight booked up for him ASAP. Come on, guys. Come on, Hunter. Come on, Dana, Loren, whoever they are now in charge of matchmaking. Let's do it. All right. Moving on then to my other option, of my other topic, which we're going to talk about. Oh, okay. Back it up. George Murray's got a comment. George says, I think UFC should have made more effort to sign Hughes. Let's get real. The biggest fight is Usman for him. Then what? Fighting Cans for the rest of his PFL career. And yeah, that's just sadly the way it is, isn't it? And it's the same for the other big star, the Chova, or whatever her name is. She's killing it at the moment, but needs to make that big jump, and maybe that'll happen eventually. You know, sad what it is. All right, cool. Let's head on to our next topic then of the evening. DC and Chael got announced as TUF Coaches during the live broadcast, and man, I'm a little bit excited about this one, but at the same time, I'm also not very excited about it, and I'm going to tell you why. It's better for TV that they're coaches, right? Both have a podcast together, so the chemistry is there. But for me, I think I listened like 2 or 3 episodes of their podcast, and I just felt it was a little too formal for me. Like, I just was expecting a little bit more banter between the two. Maybe that's come out now since I stopped listening to it. Maybe it took a little while to get going. Has any of you guys managed to catch it? Maybe I have to listen to it again. But yeah, to see those two, I think, joking around together whilst being coaches, I think it's going to be awesome to watch. It's going to be TV gold, or it should be. In my opinion, it's down to the producers to actually capture and showcase the entertaining moments from the show. Because TUF has been pretty dull in recent years. The format has just been the same for the last few years. And speaking to Cody Gibson, who was on, season 31 with Connor and Chandler, he talked about all of the things they got up to in the house that didn't even get aired. He was telling me all of the stories, pranks, you name it. And I'm like, why did they not show any of that? Right, And it's because ESPN's got it. And ESPN just need to, just be a bit more entertaining and just less formal, I think. But I have heard that people have had an issue with the coaches not fighting at the end of the season. Do they really need to, though? Right? I think we've had some solid seasons where they've not fought. Like Conor and Faber. That season was fantastic. They didn't fight at the end. So I don't think they need to. But maybe I'll tune in. Maybe I'll catch the first episode. But the first episode's got to really grip me. We got to see some drama. Otherwise, I'm not watching the rest of it. It's the same format. Like, oh, here's this guy. He's got this story. Da 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 da. He owns a farm. All right, cool. We'll get into a bit of training. Da 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 da. There's this bit with the coach in that I don't like. All right, cool. And then here's the fight. That's it. Like, come on, man. Let's do better. Do better. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on it. Let me know yours as well. Okay. Moving on then to number 3. We're going to be talking about Renato Moicano and Paddy Pimblett reignite their feud. Can we really see this fight happen, though? I want to see it happen, but part of me thinks the UFC have got other plans that they want to make. Moicano originally said on X, Paddy Pimblett is talking shit. Let me tell you something. You're gonna tap. If we fight, you never get a shot notice fight. I can't do it at the moment. I'm off. You can you can never get a short notice fight in your life. Imagine one day notice. Paddy said, I'm not talking shit, Renato. I'm talking facts. You tapped after like 2 seconds like a bitch. Only chance you'll ever get to be a UFC world champ, and you quit like an absolute sausage. I'd make you quit like Islam did you. And then he put Pussycat in. And then to which Renato replied, take it easy, brother. The judge is not going to help you this time. And he's obviously referring to the controversial decision against Jared Gordon. Paddy then replied, I won't need judges for you. They'll have the night off if we fight. Just make sure you don't tap when I choke you. So, there's a bit of a rivalry brewing up there. I'm not sure it's going to be enough for the UFC to sidestep whatever plans they've got for Paddy. I mean, if that fight gets made next, I think that would give us closure that the UFC wanted to make Conor McGregor versus Paddy Pimblett. That's what I'm going to say. Because Paddy looks like he's been ready to go for a number of weeks now, and nothing's been announced. So, yeah, that's where my head's at with that. I want him to fight Chandler, though, personally. I just think it's similar to Paddy and Frivola. There was a back and forth with them for ages. That fight never materialized because the UFC had other plans. And it's because they want to build Paddy Pimblett up, and they want him to be their next big star that cracks into title contention. So it's going to happen. Maybe not this year, maybe next year, but we'll see, depending on the matchups. All right. That is now brings us on to the last thing. we're going to talk about the 2 matchups that got announced during the broadcast of UFC 311. Alex Pereira will fight Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 313, and Gaethje will take on Dan Hooker. Gaethje versus Hooker, that's got fight of the night written all over it. It's going to be an absolute bloodbath. It's going to be a war. Both guys love to scrap and put on a show for the fans. So, look, who's not excited about that? Who's not excited about that? You're not? Let me know. But which one of these fights are you most excited to see? In a way, Pereira versus Ankalaev is my most excited fight because I want to finally see it. I think it's a little bit long overdue. I think it's a solid test for Pereira, probably his hardest in division, as I mentioned earlier. I want to see how he fares in that. So for that reason, I would go for Pereira versus Ankalaev. For entertainment factor, then you got your Gaethje versus Hooker, without a doubt. You know, like fight of the night. The bonuses are going to rain galore in that fight. I'm hoping Pereira knocks out Ankalaev in the first 2 rounds. Gaethje versus Hooker, I think, could... Wait, just make that 5 rounds. Is it 5 rounds? I'd say make it 5 rounds. Gaethje will probably best him across a decision. I think it's going to be a war, but I don't see either man getting the finish. Unless Hooker starches Gaethje, in which you got to then start to think, well, as Father Time starting to catch up with Gaethje, you know, with the knockout against Max, which was brutal. You know, maybe if you're a better man, you want to sprinkle some money on Dan Hooker knockout in that fight. You know? Because then what's next for Hooker after that would probably be like a Max Holloway or Charles Oliveira type character, right? That's what I think. All right, awesome stuff in the chats, guys. You guys have been awesome again tonight. Lovely jubbly. Let's bring this all up and round this off. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, we do not have a watch-along this weekend, unfortunately. We've got to do a weekend off, but then make sure you join us next weekend. The next watch-along is going to be a much earlier time. It is the UFC Saudi Arabia fight night. Israel Adesanya will be taking on Nasruddin Imavov. Bold prediction for that fight at the moment, off the cuff. Israel Adesanya is going to win via submission. Yes, you've heard it. Yes, I'm crazy, but put money on it if you are daring enough. There's reasons for that. I revealed on a video on the Millions platform, so you can check out our Millions profile if you feel free. If you want to know why I picked Israel via submission, so feel free to check that out. Before we wrap up, make sure you've got the notifications bell rang on our channel, because hopefully we'll be bringing you more content during this week off as well. So make sure you stay up to date with everything that's coming your way, and hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. If you've not done so already, why haven't you? Hit the notifications, hit the bell, hit the like. Simple as. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in.